But first I must have a little assistance from the audience. Ah, there's a nice-looking young man right there.
Yes, they mean you, Jim.
Oh, not me, you, Bud.
Me?
Go on, Bud. It sounds exciting.
We interrupt this program to bring you further details on the shooting of President Kennedy. After the shots were fired and the president was seen to slump over and Governor Connolly was hit, the motorcade sped on toward the hospital. It took them perhaps 5 minutes to reach the ambulance entrance of the hospitals. Reporters there say the president was lying flat on his face in the car. A man and woman were seen scrambling on the upper level of a walkway overlooking the underpass from which they believe the shots were fired. Lawrence O'Brien, who is the presidential aide, said he had no information on whether the president still was alive. There are fears that perhaps the shots might have been fatal. There are no details as yet. Mrs. Kennedy, who cried out when the shots were fired, blood was seen on the president's face, was weeping and trying to hold up her husband's head, even when reporters first reached the car. Governor Connolly of Texas was wounded. He received shots about the body. He, too, fell over. He also was raced to the same hospital. We repeat, as President Kennedy's motorcade was going through downtown Dallas today, what sounded like 3 shots were fired. The president slumped over. Governor Connolly of Texas slumped over. Blood was seen about the president's head. He slumped over, fell to the floor of the car. Police and Secret Service men quickly pulled their guns and rifles, but it is not yet known whether they returned any fire. There are fears that perhaps the shots to the president might prove fatal. He was speedily rushed to the hospital. There are no reports as yet. Please stand by for further details. We return you now to your regularly scheduled program.
A woman's busy life today, her daily aggravations, her hurry-up meals, can cause heartburn distress due to acid indigestion. The answer? Chews. More women than ever now chew chews for quick relief because this wonderful antacid in chewing gum form relieves heartburn fast and thoroughly in a way no solid antacid tablet possibly can. This was proven by the famous Chews X-ray test with a woman as the subject. X-ray motion pictures of the heartburn area were taken. Based on these X-ray movies, we made drawings for television. See how solid tablets, even in fragments, skip right on through? Now see how Chews medications become a continual flow of relief because it's in chewing gum form. That's why Chews really puts out the fire of heartburn. Next time your busy life brings on heartburn, put out the fire with Chews, the perfect antacid for heartburn.
Good night, Bud. Thanks again for a lovely evening.
Why don't you just tell me what a dope you think I am? I got it coming to me.
Because I don't think you are a dope.
Anybody who tries to be 19 when they're only 15 and 6 foot tall when they're only 5'7" is a dope.
Well, you know, when you first came to pick me up, I knew you weren't 19.
You mean I didn't fool you at all?
No.
Why'd you even bother with me?
Well, anyone who went to the trouble that you did to impress me must have a lot of imagination.
Yeah?
And not only that, I liked your relatives.
Yeah, well, they are sort of nice. Well, so long, Marissa.
Good night, Bud. Thanks again for the most unusual evening I've ever had.
Just great. You know, I've been thinking, if I'm this charming at 15, just think what I'll be like at 19.
Get in, Casanova.
Well, it was about 4 months ago that I first tried it.
You mean Armstrong One Step?
Yes, to see how it cleans and waxes floors all in one application.
And what did you find out?
It works.
You bet I use one-step floor care. And not just because I get done in half the time.
Oh?
I like the way it gets my floor clean. Not almost clean, but clean.
It really picks up the dirt.
Does it? Just look at that water. Yuck.
One Step dries to a beautiful shine.
Does it ever turn yellow?
No. Is it supposed to?
You know, my friends are amazed at how long the shine lasts on my floor. And to tell the truth, I'm amazed myself.
Try modern One Step. It cleans and waxes. One Step floor care, made only by the maker of Armstrong Floors, has earned the Good Housekeeping seal and is already used in millions of homes.
She moved straight from the farm to Washington, D.C., and suddenly the whole disarmament question became simple. When she smiles, she disarms everyone in sight, including her boss, the congressman. Oh, that's me, William Wyndham. I'm referring, of course, to Inger Stevens, the farmer's daughter. Join the fun, won't you? Tonight at 9:30, 8:30 Central Time, on most of these ABC stations.
I'm Dan O'Herlihy. Doc faces losing Jimmy when he can't prove he's his son to an unscrupulous schoolmaster on The Travels of Jamie McFeeters.
7:30 Eastern Time, 6:30 Central on ABC. President Kennedy has been shot in Dallas, Texas. He was shot while he was touring town with Governor Connally in the famous bubble car. The bubble was down. Both Mrs. Kennedy and Mrs. Connally were in the car with them. 3 shots rang out, and the president slumped forward, and Governor Connally remained seated upright. So far, the latest word is that they are still alive. Mrs. Kennedy, as soon as the president slumped forward, she grabbed him, she cradled him in her arms, and she said, "Oh no," and tried to hold up his head. Then the car was quickly taken out of line and sped to the hospital. The president and the governor were rushed to Parkland Hospital near Dallas, the Dallas trademark, where Mr. Kennedy was to have made a speech. Thomas, the latest word is from Representative Albert Thomas of Texas, and he said he had been informed that President Kennedy and Governor Connally were both still alive after having been shot in the assassination attempt.
Excuse me, Don, we have a tape from Bob Clark in Texas. Can we ask for that round?
Thomas, standing outside the corridor of the emergency room in which both the president and the governor were under treatment, said he had been told that the president was still alive, but was in a very critical condition. Bob Clark, ABC's Bob Clark, is switching by, is standing beside in Texas, and we will switch there for a direct report from Dallas.
Presidential motorcade had just passed through heavy crowds in downtown Dallas and was circling through the fringes of the business district when 3 shots suddenly rang out somewhere in the crowd. It was impossible to see from 3 or 4 automobiles back in the motorcade where I was riding with a press pool. Impossible to see immediately what had happened. But the Secret Service pulled out a machine gun and then gave the orders that sped the motorcade at some 60 miles an hour directly to Parkland Memorial Hospital, about 3 or 4 miles away. There was no panic, but shock and, of course, grief by other members of the party who were close enough to see what had happened. When the motorcade reached the hospital, the few reporters riding in the pool leaped out, raced immediately to the side of the president's open limousine. He was riding in one of the White House Cadillac limousines that is carried across the country, used for parades and other presidential processions. The president was lying in the back seat of the limousine, his head cradled in the First Lady's lap. At this stage, there was no official word as to whether Mr. Kennedy was still alive, but he lay motionless on the back seat of the car for some 2 minutes while a stretcher was wheeled out from the hospital. The president was lifted out of the car, placed gently on the stretcher, and wheeled immediately into the surgical area of the hospital. The First Lady followed, holding him with one hand, followed the other members of the party into the hospital. It appeared at this stage that Vice President Lyndon Johnson might also have been struck, though he was riding in a car behind the president. He walked into the hospital, but holding one arm as if he might have been hit by one of the 3 bullets. Governor Connolly of Texas was also wounded seriously, but there is no immediate word as to his condition. The governor lay half stretched out in the front seat of the presidential limousine. He had ridden through the crowds in the presidential procession. Mr. Kennedy had flown from Fort Worth to Dallas and then entered the motorcade at Love Field in Dallas. The crowds along the streets going into Dallas and in the downtown area were extremely large and extremely friendly. A White House press aide riding in the press pool car noted repeatedly the absence of antagonistic signs. There were very few Goldwater signs. I noted one hand-lettered sign held by a young man which said, "I hold John F. Kennedy in utter contempt," but that was almost the only sign in the crowd that indicated any bitterness toward the Kennedy party. The shots rang out as the motorcade had entered an open area just beyond the main downtown business district. It was impossible to determine where the shots had come from. The immediate interest of the Secret Service, of course, was in protecting the president at that stage, while some Secret Service men must have peeled off to try to track down the assassin. The main group of Secret Service men traveling with the president sped on with him to the hospital.
You're going to give me a little more information now. Bill Lord, who is with the presidential party in Dallas, Texas, also has a report from us here. And Bill, I believe you're on the air here with me. Where are you now? Repeating just a moment, Bill. Bill Lord is telling us from the sheriff's office just around the corner from the position in Dallas where President Kennedy and Governor Connolly was shot. that the police have a suspect which they are bringing in and which the police radio is now announcing in Dallas. Bill, do you know what the president's condition is at the present time? The president and the governor have both been taken to Parkland Hospital about a half an hour ago, and they are still alive. The president is in very critical condition, and a Roman Catholic priest has been called in. Also, every specialist in Dallas and every specialist in the country, of course, will be alerted to be there. The president is in the emergency room, and the governor is also being attended there.
Don. Go ahead, Don. Read whatever you got. We can take it.
Bill Lord in Dallas tells us that they also have several witnesses down there who witnessed the tragedy this afternoon when President Kennedy and Governor Connally were cut down by assassins' bullets in the famous bubble car of the president's as they toured Dallas on the way to a supermarket where the president was to be speaking. Mr. Kennedy, here is a late reassuring note from Dallas. President Kennedy, according to a member of his staff, is still alive.
Here's a report from Ron Cochran.
And now here is a report from Ron Cochran.
Thank you very much, Don. I had just returned from lunch where I was called and informed of the tragedy involving President Kennedy. I'm sure that millions of Americans... You can see there's a little confusion here in our studio. I have just returned from lunch. I was called at a restaurant here in New York, advised of the tragedy involving President Kennedy. He was, as you probably know by now, shot along with the governor of Texas in a motorcade in Dallas, Texas, by unknown assailants. So far as we know at the present time, they have not been captured. Now, I'm going to start at the beginning and give you as much information as we have, which, unfortunately, at this time, is not very much. President Kennedy has been shot, as I said, by an unknown assassin in Dallas. He's in a Dallas hospital. The latest unconfirmed report from the emergency room is that he is still alive. Texas Governor John Connally also was hit by the bullets, probably fired by the same gun. We do not know, however, whether it was one bullet or two or more. The two men were riding together in a parade through downtown Dallas. They were in the president's open limousine and were cut down apparently simultaneously, possibly by the same bullet. The president's wife was beside him in the car, and she fell on her knees beside him at the time. Texas Governor John Connally also was shot. It isn't known yet whether he is still alive. When the president was shot, Mrs. Kennedy jumped up and grabbed him and said, "Oh, no." The Secret Service ordered the motorcade to speed on to nearby Parkland Hospital. Associated Press reporter Jack Bell says the president and Connally were shot as the motorcade entered a triple underpass which leads to the Stemmons Freeway in Dallas. Bell said that a man and woman were scrambling on the upper level of a walkway overlooking the underpass. Mrs. Kennedy was weeping and trying to hold up her husband's head when reporters reached the car. The president apparently was shot in the head. He fell face down in the back seat of the car. Blood was on his head. Governor Connally remained half-seated, slumped to the left, and there was blood on his face and forehead. In Washington, the White House said it had no information beyond the reports they had received from newsmen at the scene. Both the president and Connally were rushed to the Parkland Hospital. It's located near the Dallas Trade Mart, where the president was to have made a speech. Even at high speed, it took nearly 5 minutes to get the car to the ambulance entrance of the hospital. Representative Albert Thomas of Texas says that he's been informed that both President Kennedy and Governor John Connally of Texas are still alive. That was a half hour ago. Do you have, Ed Silverman, are you in contact with our reporter in Dallas?
Just spoke with Bill Lord a moment ago, Ron. He is there with the sheriff. He merely confirms that both Mrs. Kennedy and Mrs. Connally have escaped uninjured. They are safe. There are no further details as yet on the condition of the president or the governor, and he has just left the phone for a moment to check with the sheriff on the possibility of the capture of the assailants.
Now, just to inform myself, is Bill Lord at the hospital?
He is across the street from the hospital with the setup that the sheriff has put into effect there.
Well, evidently they are getting things organized to the best of their ability, so that perhaps very soon we'll be getting more comprehensive information.
We certainly hope so. In a condition like this, there's a great deal of confusion when things first are getting underway. I'm sure they're getting squared away down there, and as soon as anything fresh comes in, we'll get it right to you, Ron.
We have this word here from the Associated Press. President Kennedy was given blood transfusions today at Parkland Hospital in an effort to save his life after he and Governor John Connally were shot in the assassination attempt. Now we'll go through some of the other wire service information which has reached us here. Representative Albert Thomas of Texas said that he was informed that President Kennedy and Governor John Connally are both still alive. That was more than a half hour ago. We had some information regarding the persons who possibly might have fired the shots that struck the president and the governor. It says, according to the United Press International Service, at the top of a hill, a man and a woman appeared huddled on the ground. In the turmoil, it was impossible to determine at once whether the Secret Service and Dallas police returned the gunfire that struck down Kennedy and Connally. It was also difficult to determine immediately whether the First Lady and Mrs. Connally were injured. Both women were crouched down over the inert forms of their husbands as the big car raced toward the hospital. Mrs. Kennedy was on her knees on the floor of the rear seat with her head toward the president. The Senate in Washington has recessed. It said it was doing so pending developments in the shooting of President Kennedy in Dallas. Now, this is the latest picture received, taken just before the assassination attempt of the president and his wife as they rode in the Dallas motorcade. When he was hit, Mr. Kennedy was standing up. He fell back over the seat of the car, and Mrs. Kennedy immediately bent over him, cradled his head in her arms. Her cry of, "Oh no, oh my God," was the first realization of the reporters on the scene what had happened. We'll show you more pictures as we receive them. These pictures come into our ABC News headquarters here in New York by wire, and we'll undoubtedly be receiving other pictures from time to time. The photograph was taken as Mr. Kennedy applauded when his wife was introduced at a Chamber of Commerce breakfast in Dallas this morning. That's the most recent picture that we have. This was this morning at a Chamber of Commerce breakfast in Dallas. That's the picture that you see now. Now, simply to recap and we're going to stay on the air here in an emergency circumstances. I'm sure you can see everybody poured into the studio the minute that that word came. We're going to keep the air here to bring you any late news as it arrives. But just to recap the information that we have thus far, President Kennedy and Governor Connally of Texas were shot by unknown assailants, would-be assassins, as they rode in a motorcade in Dallas, Texas today. The president is said to be in critical condition at the hospital. He evidently was shot in the head. We do not know any more than that regarding his condition at this time. We expect to receive it hopefully within the next few minutes. Some information from the hospital as to his condition. We understand that a priest was called to the hospital, although that does not necessarily mean anything too discouraging. Because it's more or less routine for a priest to be called under such circumstances, and it does not necessarily mean, of course, that the president's condition is so bad that they feel that last rites must be administered. Mrs. Kennedy, incidentally, apparently is safe, and Mrs. Connally also. Both women disappeared into the emergency section of Parkland Hospital to await the news of their husbands. Outside the emergency room in a buff-walled hallway, anxious members of the White House staff gathered, including Major General Chester Clifton, the military aide to the president, and Brigadier General Godfrey McHugh, the Air Force aide. Also standing by in the emergency is Mrs. Mary Gallagher, the personal secretary to the First Lady.
Take one.
Although Dallas is regarded as a center of strong political opposition to President Kennedy, and of course it was only recently that you'll recall that Ambassador Adlai Stevenson was more or less personally attacked by a group of radical rightists in Dallas after he had addressed a group there. The heavy street crowds between Love Field Airport and the scene of the shooting apparently was overwhelmingly friendly. There were numerous welcome Kennedy signs, but a few were anti-Kennedy.
Ron, excuse me for interrupting. About the only thing that's fresh that Bill Lord has to report, he is with the sheriff there. They are now interrogating some 6 witnesses to the shooting. There's been no announcement made as to the details, but the sheriff is speaking to 6 people who claim to have seen the shooting. He has them inside. Just a moment, Bill's coming. There are now 12 eyewitnesses, but no indication as to who might have done it. Is that right, Bill Lord?
No, keep
While Ed Silverman...
Indication, some of the witnesses have indicated that as to a description of the man, that he is a white male about 30 years old. That's about the only thing they have to go on now, Ron.
Well, now this is this the man that they are reasonably sure fired the shots, or do you know that?
Yes, the witnesses say that they saw a white male, approximately age 30 in police parlance, fire the shots, but there have been no details. They're still being interrogated.
We will have to find out, of course, how far away this man was and what position he had for firing the shot. It's most unusual, incidentally, that such a thing could happen because of the unusually tight security measures that are ordinarily taken by the Secret Service who guard the president. And normally, any vantage point, a rooftop, and windows which command a parade route are carefully scrutinized and carefully guarded, and men are usually posted on rooftops along a parade route, particularly if there is any reason at all to suppose that there might be someone in the area who would have such ideas as assassination in his mind regarding the president. These precautions, of course, are taken by the Secret Service for all presidents, as they have been for many years. Just to explain what we are attempting to do here, we, of course, because of the emergency circumstances, cannot take you by picture directly to Dallas at the present time. We are setting up facilities to do that and will as quickly as possible, but it is technically impossible to do so right at this present time. Before very much more time elapses, however, we hope to be able to take you directly to Dallas for some on-the-scenes reports from there. In the meantime, we will have to maintain contact with our reporters there by telephone and by whatever other means to bring you the news as it comes through. We have further word here that throughout the parade, the president, before the shooting, was confronted with the evidence of anti-administration feeling in Dallas. Now we have word that we can switch directly to Dallas. We take you now to Dallas, and I'm not sure who your reporter will be.
Please, I know what you want here, so that Ron knows what he's saying.
You're talking. We're showing the picture. We're going to show it to you now.
I can't see the monitor.
We're going to get you. Just take the picture, Jimmy. This is from Dallas, Texas. Come on, Gray. Come on, let's go. Hey, get the video here.
Have I got audio here?
Yes, you're on. You're on the air. You're open, you're on.
I understand that I am still on the air. I was not quite sure whether you could hear my voice, but you are now receiving a picture directly from Dallas. I'm not sure what you're seeing there. This is one of the speakers at a meeting where the president appeared this morning. We are, of course, operating at the present moment under extreme emergency conditions, and we must apologize for not being able to, at this time, bring you direct pictures of the scene of the motorcade where the incident occurred. That, of course, will be forthcoming later. It's a matter of sufficient time elapsing so that the film can be processed.
Of our God. Will you bow your heads? Draw near us, O God, and sustain us with thy presence, and grant unto us wisdom, strength, courage, to live in keeping with thy law, and to live as free men. Amen.
Dr. Dickinson, the pastor of one of the largest Methodist congregations in the world. The word was not given to the crowd, but we understand that the president is dead. This we do not have an absolute confirmation on, but this is the word that we have. As we said a few minutes ago, he apparently died in the operating room at Parkland Hospital, which is the city-county emergency hospital here, located about 1.5 miles from this building. The president and his party have been in Texas now since yesterday. They arrived in San Antonio, then to Houston, then to Fort Worth last night. He walked into a big crowd of some 6,000 to 8,000 this morning in a parking lot in downtown Fort Worth. The fears here were that had the president had a problem in Dallas, it would have been at the airport upon his arrival. But nothing went wrong there. There were some pickets, there were some demonstrators, but the president, in his charming manner, moved into the crowd with his wife by his side and greeted and shook hands for quite some time there at the airport. Then, and again, we go back to this business of here, we have been forecasting rain in Dallas for the last couple of days, and this morning was one of those dreary mornings. There was fog, there was rain, the clouds hung low, and the weathermen had the forecast that this would hold through this afternoon. But then as the morning wore on, the clouds broke away, and when the president's big jet set down right on schedule at 25 minutes before the noon hour Central Time, the sun was bright, the crowds were out, the bubble plexiglass cover for the president's limousine was put away, and the president and his wife and the governor of the state of Texas rode in the open car. All went well past the airport, down Mockingbird Lane to Lemon, down Lemon Avenue to Turtle Creek on into Cedar Springs down to Harwood, the crowds out to see the president, then down to Main Street, up Main, and just as the presidential motorcade started to enter the triple underpass at Houston Street, shots rang out. The president, as we have it now, mortally wounded. The governor of Texas, John Connally, who served as Secretary of the Navy in Mr. Kennedy's cabinet when Mr. Kennedy first assumed the high office, is wounded. He was shot in the chest. A Secret Service agent whose job it was, as with his others, fellow agents, to guard the life of the president, killed instantly. 3 shots fired and 3 people hit. The president apparently dead. The governor of Texas wounded. We don't know how seriously. A Secret Service agent killed on the spot. This is not confirmed, the death of the president. We have it on what would normally be good authority. But until the word officially comes, there is no way to know. The crowds have emptied now, and this big market hall that was to have been the site of a festive day for the president, for his wife, and the vice president and his wife, and the governor and his wife, and the many Texas congressmen, now being emptied and most of the meals left untouched. There had been a rhubarb here for a couple of weeks over who would sit at the head table. And finally, at the last minute, a protocol expert was called in, and the head table seating arrangement became final as of this morning. Rift has existed for a long time in the Democratic Party in Texas, and this rift, the Democrats will tell you, whether they be conservatives or loyalists or liberals or moderates or whatever faction of the Democratic Party they belong to in Texas, they all say that this is just an inter-party fight and we can all get together when the president comes to town. Well, finally they did get together. The big bone of contention had been whether or not Senator Ralph Yarborough, who is considered certainly in the liberal wing of the party, would be seated at the head table. He does not get along too well with Vice President Johnson or with Governor Connally. The word was that last night the senator refused to ride in the motorcade in the same car with Vice President Johnson. But today, all was to have been pretty much peaches and cream, as it were. They were all going to sit at the head table and break bread together on this Friday, the 22nd of November. And then, before they could ever reach this market hall, the word is that the president has been killed, that one of his agents is dead, and the governor of Texas is wounded. From the Trade Mart in Dallas, Texas, this is Eddie Barker.
Go ahead, Ron, talk.
You heard that report direct from Dallas, Texas. To repeat what was said earlier in the report from Dallas, there is a report that the president has died. However, we must emphasize that this report has so far been unconfirmed. And that report came in a few minutes ago and has not been confirmed thus far. And so we are inclined to disbelieve it. We certainly hope, of course, that it is not true. The president was given the last holy rites of the Roman Catholic Church. A Catholic priest who helped perform the last rite said he did not believe the president was dead at the time. The sacrament was administered shortly before 1 o'clock.
Ron,
yes,
Bill Lord briefly reported from the sheriff's office in Dallas, and he confirms that the sheriff's office say that there were 4 shots fired, that a Secret Service agent was killed, which indicates the deadly accuracy of these shots. 4 shots fired, 1 agent killed, and both the president and Governor Connally fell by them. Either they were awfully close or were using rifles, it would seem.
It has been confirmed that the Secret Service agent was killed.
Yes, by the sheriff's office in Dallas. And there's also an indication that a young man was taken into custody by the sheriff's office before questioning. He is a suspect.
We have a report that an assistant to Governor Connally said he talked to the governor in the hospital operating room, which is the same operating room apparently where the president was taken. He said the governor was shot just below the shoulder blade in the back. He said he asked Connally how it happened, and he said, "I don't know. I guess from the back they got the president too." Mrs. Lyndon Johnson said after a visit to the emergency operating room that the vice president is fine. She was taken back into another first-floor room where Johnson originally had gone. Asked if her husband also had been wounded. She shook her head negatively. She said he had not been. Secret Service men pushed reporters away and permitted no more questions. Of course, you can imagine the confusion, the emergency circumstances, the confusion that must exist around that hospital. Now we understand that we are ready to switch to Washington for a report from there. We are ready to go to Washington. Come in, Washington. We are ready to switch to Washington for a direct report from there, but for some reason, under the circumstances, we seem to be having a little difficulty with that, which I'm sure will be cleared up in a moment. Come in, Washington. We were told from our control room here in New York that Washington was standing by with a report, but we've been unable to reach them At this moment, I'm sure that in a matter of seconds, perhaps in another minute or two, we will be able to reach Washington. Did you have something else, Ed Silverman?
I just thought we might recap for those who probably heard about it just a few moments ago.
I think that's a good idea.
It happened that the president and Governor Connolly were shot on their motorcade as it entered an underpass while going through downtown Dallas. And when the shots were first fired, there were thought to be 3. That later was confirmed there were 4 shots. The president fell over face down. Governor Connolly apparently was wounded in the body. He fell forward. Mrs. Kennedy leaped up and cried, "Oh no," and tried to hold the president's head up. Blood was seen on the president's head. And a Secret Service agent apparently was shot by one of the assassin's bullets as well. And of course, you have it from there on.
Thanks very much, Ed. In case you did join us late or had not heard the news, those are the facts so far as we know them up to this time. And I'm receiving word now. We have received word that 2 priests who were with the president have reported that the president is dead. Now here again, we must emphasize that this is not an official announcement. It has not been announced by the White House or anyone in the official party traveling with the president. But the Associated Press quotes 2 priests who were with the president, stating that he died from the bullet wounds or wound inflicted upon him by a sniper. We have to assume that it was a sniper who fired from a considerable distance. The president was given the last rites of the Roman Catholic Church at about 1 o'clock Dallas time. And at that time, the first reports were that the president was still alive. However, this latest word says that the priests were under the impression the president was dead at the time the last rites were administered. Now, we, of course, are going to keep the air here, and we will bring you whatever reports come in as they come in from the wire services, from our reporters on the scene, and from Washington and Dallas directly. We will be going to Washington before long for a direct report from there. Ed Silverman is sitting here beside me. He has a telephone to Dallas and is in touch with our reporter Bill Lord, who is at the hospital and has been in touch with people at the scene. Ed, is there anything new there?
No, there is nothing new, Ron. Bill left the phone to check with the sheriff's office. He did confirm the death of the Secret Service agent, the fact that at least a dozen eyewitnesses have been brought in for interrogation, and the fact that 1 suspect has been picked up. He is in there being questioned now. There have been no details. Everyone is being very close-mouthed in the sheriff's office. And, of course, there's a great deal of rumor. Bill mentioned a great deal of rumor, as is understandable at a time like this. So we would hesitate to pass any of that along. We'll stick strictly with the facts as we get them.
Thank you, Ed Silverman. Now, we're going to try again to switch to Washington and Edward P. Morgan. But at the moment, unfortunately, you are not hearing him. We will get that problem straightened out shortly. We have a report that Senator Edward Kennedy, the president's brother, was presiding over the Senate today when word came that the president had been shot. An aide informed him, and he rushed out of the Senate chamber. Attorney General Robert Kennedy, the president's younger brother and closest advisor, was having lunch at home when the word came of the shooting. The president's personal secretary said the Attorney General was remaining at the Kennedy Hickory Hill estate in McLean, Virginia, awaiting further word. Newsmen carried the word to House Speaker John McCormick at a luncheon table in Washington. He said, "This is terrible. All I can say is that it is a terrible thing, and all Americans of all religions and faiths are praying for the president and Governor Connolly." Now,
I'm just thinking of all the people who...
Now, we're receiving a report here. The United Press reports... The United Press reports that the president died at 1:35. That would be 1:35 Eastern Time, I presume. That would have been about 1:35 Central Time. That was only about 2 minutes ago. Now, that, again, is a United Press International report. It is not attributed. We do not know whether that is an official announcement by anyone in the Kennedy party. We have another photograph of Mr. Kennedy in the motorcade, which was taken minutes before the assassination attempt. This is a still photograph of the president in the motorcade. You see he's riding in an open car, and we're informed at the time that the shots struck him, he was standing in that car. Unfortunately, apparently making a good target for the sniper, who was hiding somewhere and may have fired from a considerable distance, probably with a high-powered rifle, considering the accuracy with which he shot. And also the fact that one of the Secret Service agents was killed. The Secret Service agents normally walk directly beside the car on either side. We do not see any in this photograph, but usually 2 or 3 Secret Service agents will walk on either side of the car so that they are there to spot anyone who looks like a troublemaker. Government sources now confirm. We have this from Washington. Government sources now confirm that President Kennedy is dead. So that apparently is the final word, and an incredible event that I am sure no one except the assassin himself could have possibly imagined would occur on this day. The President and Mrs. Kennedy had gone to Texas in a speaking tour, which was to be, in effect, more or less the beginning of the President's 1964 campaign. It was a trip in which it had been hoped he would bring the various dissident forces in the Democratic Party in Texas together and heal up some of the political wounds that had existed there. Instead, it ended in tragedy with the President's death. We have no word as to the condition of Governor Connally, although of Texas, who was also shot, although evidently he was not as seriously wounded and apparently is still alive. The President was shot in the head. Ed Silverman, do you have further word?
There is a report from Dallas. One of the TV newsmen covering the motorcade says that he looked up just after the shot was fired and saw a rifle being withdrawn from the 5th or 6th floor window of a nearby building. So apparently it was caused by rifle fire. Here's another report, Ron, which just came in.
This one says Senator Ralph Yarborough of Texas, a Democrat, talking only a few minutes before... We are now going to bring you an audio report, that is a voice report, from reporter Bill Lord in Dallas. Come in, Bill Lord.
Hello, Bill Lord, are you there? Come in, please, Bill Lord. Well, Bill was at the other end of this phone a moment ago. He has been at the sheriff's office. Apparently, he had to leave the phone for some urgent announcement. We had hoped to bring him to you now, but apparently Bill Lord has left us. We will bring him to you as soon as he comes back to the phone. Now back to you, Ron.
Thank you, Ed. Senator Ralph Yarborough of Texas, talking only a few minutes before to newsmen, collapsed in sobs as he told of witnessing the slaying of the President. Senator Yarborough said he was in the 3rd car behind the President. He said, "It seemed to me that at least 2 of the shots came from our right rear. I cannot say about the 3rd. It seems impossible that there could have been more than one sniper. But it seemed impossible to me that there could be even one, considering the security precautions that are usually taken." To recapitulate some of the information which we've already given you, in case you may be joining us late, President Kennedy is dead. He died in a hospital after being cut down by an assassin's bullet while his motorcade was moving along on the outskirts of Dallas, Texas. Texas Governor John Connally also was shot, but there is no word up to this time on his fate. There was a report that Vice President Johnson also had been wounded, but this was denied by Mrs. Johnson. First word of the president's death came from two priests as they left Parkland Hospital's emergency ward where the president was taken. Their announcement brought audible sobs from a crowd of scores of newsmen and other citizens. The confirmation of the president's death came quickly then, shortly after that, from Washington. There is no longer any doubt. The president is dead. The vice president himself, Vice President and soon-to-be President Lyndon Johnson, is somewhere in the hospital, but it's impossible to determine his precise whereabouts right at this time. He's reported, of course, badly shocked by the shooting. He was in the motorcade with the president. Doctors were trying to keep him as quiet as possible. He was under heavy Secret Service and police protection. Throughout the Texas Strip, when Kennedy and Johnson had been in the same motorcade as an obvious security measure, they had ridden in separate cars so that both of them would not be injured at once in the event of just such an occasion. Now we take you directly to Dallas.
Depository building. I headed for there right after the shots. And they weren't letting anyone...
Pierce, excuse me here. We have our tape ready to roll.
You're on the air. You're on network feed.
We are feeding now. Very good. Ladies and gentlemen, from WFA-TV in Dallas, what you're about to see is the first eyewitness report that we could line up. This program went on the air in Dallas, Texas, approximately 10 minutes after the president was shot. Then after that, we will have film that is completely unedited that was made, and and frankly, we do not know what's on the film. So right now, let's run the videotape of the program this morning with the eyewitness. Let's go. About 10 or 15 minutes ago, a tragic thing, from all indications at this point, has happened in the city of Dallas. Let me quote to you this. And you'll excuse me if I am out of breath. A bulletin. This is from the United Press, from Dallas. President Kennedy and Governor John Connally have been cut down by assassins' bullets in downtown Dallas. They were riding in an open automobile when the shots were fired. The president, his limp body carried in the arms of his wife, Jacqueline, has rushed to Parkland Hospital. And if you'll excuse me if I give some directions and we talk about what we're going to do here for the next few minutes, but Bobby, let's tape this, if you please, particularly the interview with the eyewitness people. It is being taped good. Here's a piece of copy that was rushed to me and was torn off from the United Press in Dallas. President Kennedy has been shot in Dallas, Texas. He was shot as a motorcade left downtown Dallas. Mrs. Kennedy jumped up and grabbed the president. She cried, "Oh no," as the motorcade sped on. An Associated Press photographer, James Algens, 8LTGENS, reports he saw blood on the president's head. The AP man said he heard two shots but thought someone was shooting fireworks until he saw the blood on the president. He also said he saw no one with a gun. We were awfully close. Jerry Haynes, as you know, and Mr. Peppermint, we were awfully close to being an eyewitness. We were standing on Houston Street between Main and the next street over. Jerry, come in, would you please? And the next street over, we watched the president come by and gave him the applaud that is due the office of the President of the United States. And as he turned left, 2 or 3 shots rang out. We thought they were firecrackers until, I thought they did until the last shot rang out and we heard people screaming. And we rushed over in time to see a policeman standing behind one of the fire poles, looking around as if for some place to shoot, someone to shoot at. I'd like to remind you here that as the news comes into the newsroom, we will be on the air. We'll have our eyewitness people here in just a moment. Vicki, would you see if they need some coffee or something? These people are awfully shaken up. They come awfully close. They were in the line of fire. Jerry?
I remember, Jay, you said, I thought it was, a firecracker or something like that, and then they followed one shot, and then a second or two later another shot, and then another second or two, and then the third shot, and you said the man's been shot at, and we both turned.
No, I said, my God, that's gunshot.
That's right. And then we turned right over, we were behind Mr. Leely's statue, and we ran over to the cement wall, and we saw people beginning to scatter in places, and I believe our eyewitness was on the ground.
Chair, would you do me a favor? Would you go check in the newsroom now, and as the men come in from the field, or if they have stories, please let me know, and also get someone to check with, we were supposed to take the feed from KRLD. They may still be doing a feed from there. Check and let me know. And until our news crew gets back in, we will sort of use this studio as our headquarters. These people and you will excuse me, I don't want to interrupt you. I'm so sorry because I know that you were so upset, but I would like to talk to you for a minute. It's a little bit awkward, so the camera shots will have to fall as they may. I'm going to stand right here and maybe somebody can give me a chair while we're doing this. May I have your name, please, sir?
Bill Newman.
And this is Mrs. Newman?
Yes,
And this is?
James Clayton.
James, and this is?
Billy.
Billy, tell me what you saw and what you felt. What happened to you?
We had just come from left field after seeing the President and the First Lady, and we were just in front of the triple underpass on Elm Street, and we were at the edge of the curve, getting ready to wave at the President. So
you were down under the viaduct, so to speak, weren't you?
Well, we were halfway in between
on the grass,
triple underpass. We were at the curve when the incident happened. But the President's car was some 50 feet still yet. In front of us coming towards us, and we heard the first shot, and the President, I don't know who was hit first, but the President jumped up in his seat, and I thought it scared him. I thought it was a firecracker because he looked, fear. And then as the car got directly in front of us, well, a gunshot apparently from behind us hit the President in the side of the temple.
Do you think the first gunshot came from behind you, too?
I think it came from the same location. Apparently back up on the mall. I don't know what you call it.
For the benefit of nomenclature, all of you folks have gone out under the viaduct, and as you turn, going under the viaduct on the left-hand side, there's some grass. Do you think the shot came from up on top of the viaduct toward the President? Is that correct?
Yes, sir. Not on the viaduct itself, but up on top of the hill, a little mound of ground there, the garden.
How far away would you say that is from where the President was? A couple of 300 yards, something like that?
Well, I have no idea because I didn't see where the gunshot come from. We were looking directly at the President when he was hit. Mm-hmm. And he was more or less directly in front of us, and we didn't realize what happened until we seen the side of his head whenever the bullet hit him in the head.
Did you see the blood coming from the President's head?
Yes, sir. I don't know if my wife did. I seen that.
Yes, sir. It was awful.
It is awful.
That's all.
What kind of work do you do, sir?
I'm a construction worker, electrician.
Is this the first time that you have seen a President of the United States? Did you see him when he was here before in 1961?
No, sir.
Your housewife
Yes, sir.
took the day off to come downtown and see the President?
Yes, sir, we did. We wanted our children to see it.
Mm-hmm. Were you in the line of fire? I remember vividly whenever I walked over and looked over the banister there and saw across the street that you were down on the ground so that to keep out of the line of fire. What was the first thought that struck your mind?
I thought it was a firecracker, and I saw the blood, and I had the baby, and I just ran, and I got on top of him and laid on the grass. It just scared me. It was terrible.
Did you see anyone else hit besides the...
Governor Conley was kind of turned to the side, and he grabbed his stomach.
Okay. I'd like to remind you that this is Jay Watson. I'm speaking to you from the studios of WFAA-TV in Dallas. The tape that you just have witnessed was played back approximately 10 minutes on our station after the President was shot this afternoon in Dallas. The tape of the Eyewitness, there were others. The two people, as you could see, we were in a state of confusion there at the moment, but at least we did have the Eyewitness report for you. In case you have tuned in late, government sources in Washington say that President Kennedy is dead. He was shot at approximately 12:35 this afternoon in Dallas, Texas. The gentleman on my left and on your right is Bert Shipp, who is in charge of the photographers in our newsroom. And Bert, you have some film. Just a minute. Bobby, is the film ready to roll yet? Hello. No, they're queuing up the film now that Bert took at Parkland Hospital, as I understand it.
Jay, it's going to start out some brief scenes at the Market Hall, or at Trade Mart, where the President was due to arrive. It's about probably a mile from the scene of the downtown shooting. And, of course, we had no word at Market Hall as to what went on downtown.
Roll the film.
And it was a complete mystery. The police didn't even know. But we knew... As you'll see about halfway through the film, the police went on past the Market Hall area, or Trade Mart rather, and on it to Parkland Hospital.
Bob, whenever you're ready, go ahead and roll. Let's see what we got. Excuse me.
Oh, this is a shot. There we go. Here's Market. There's Market Hall. Trade Mart is right across the street from there. They had a big welcome sign for the president there at the corner of Industrial and Stemmons. It says, "Welcome, Jackie." And
now, this was the place where the president was supposed to make his speech.
Here's some a gentleman carrying signs. I guess you'd call them gentlemen. They had these signs. They wasn't causing any trouble. They were run off moments after this, told that there was private property and they couldn't be around there. And they wouldn't talk to us other than they said their signs spoke for themselves. Here's some of the crowd, 450 extra policemen called on duty. Everybody waited anxiously. And waited and waited and waited. There's the policeman ushering a fellow by the name of Joyner from Grand Prairie back across the street. The boys had their mouths taped up so they wouldn't be able to answer any questions. Now there goes the president on up the hill there. He's been, this is after we found out there was something wrong. And
speeding past.
Yeah, and here's the disappointed crowd left there at the Trade Mart. I went up on the roadway there to ask some policemen. Here we go to the hospital. There's homicide detectives in front of us. There's Parkland Hospital. There's the entrance. Police cars all over the place. There is Congressman Wright. He's teary-eyed, as you could imagine. And there's the presidential limousine. The Secret Service men shaking it over. There's
Wright again.
Wright and Yarborough. There's the Secret Service man is taking a type of a mattress or something out of the back of the car there. And there's Chief Curry. He just couldn't believe it. He had put everything he had into this visit and gave the men all types of instruction. There's inside of a car. I don't know whether that must have been Conley's car. There's some more shots of everybody waiting expectantly. At this time, no one knew anything. Then there goes Ms. Lincoln, the president's press secretary, inside. And there's Yarborough again, Senator Yarborough, and he says the sight was too gruesome to describe. And there's a final parting shot from Parkland.
The film and the quality of the film, of course, you can understand, and also the fact that it was not edited. This gentleman is Bob Walker, news director of WFAA Television. Bob, do you have some last-minute items there?
Just this, that the Vice President is on his way to Washington, where he will be sworn in. The President's children are on the second floor of the White House and have not been told as yet that their father was killed. And the White House news staff is under a state of complete, White House staff, I should say, is under a state of complete collapse. First reports said that President Kennedy was shot from an overpass. Our WFAA TV reporter, Mal Couch, saw the gun emerge from the upper story of the warehouse, which has turned out to be the second floor of the Texas Book Depository, which is a familiar sign.
Let me interrupt you here. This is Jay Watson and Bob Walker at WFAA TV in Dallas. Let's switch now to ABC in New York.
This is Ron Cochran at the ABC News headquarters in New York. Just to recapitulate what most of you, I'm sure, already know by now, President Kennedy is dead. The 35th President of the United States, born May 29, 1917 in Boston, the first Catholic president ever elected. He was also the youngest man ever elected president. He was the first American chief executive to face the possibility of nuclear warfare. He risked it with a show of force to protect American interests. Later, he succeeded in achieving an accord with Russia limiting nuclear tests, and that occurred only recently. Now we go to Washington for a direct report from Ed Morgan.
This is Edward P. Morgan in Washington. I have just come from the White House. The president is dead. The word came to the White House from a doctor in Dallas. The scene in the White House is a mixture of stunned disbelief, anger, and heartbreak. I saw McGeorge Bundy, the president's chief advisor on international security affairs. His eyes were red-rimmed. He was silent. He shook my hands in silence. By coincidence, I happened to have lunch with Ralph Dungan, one of the president's other top advisors. We drove back to the White House together. On our way back, we saw clots of students at George Washington University standing in the street listening to the horrible news on the radio. When I got to the White House, secretaries were sobbing audibly in the corridors. Charles Horsky, the president's advisor for District of Columbia Affairs, was walking back and forth in the corridor with his hands beating his forehead. Hubert Humphrey happened to be at the lunch that Dungan and I attended at the Chilean embassy, where we both got the news. The senator's first reaction was one of high indignation, and his audible reaction was unprintable. He immediately went to the Senate, where the news had already been given. There is no official spokesman, ironically enough, at the White House at this moment. Pierre Salinger, the president's press secretary, is not in Texas, but at last reports was on the way in the air from Honolulu to Tokyo with Secretary of State Dean Rusk. At this moment, it seems hardly the time, and yet the inexorability of events make it necessary to report what the order of events is now. Vice President Lyndon Johnson will be the next president of the United States. According to the processes of the law, he must be sworn in as soon as possible. Calvin Coolidge was sworn in New England at midnight, as I recall, after Warren Harding had died in San Francisco of blood poisoning. Harry Truman was sworn in, you may remember, in Washington in April 1945 after Franklin D. Roosevelt had died of a stroke in Warm Springs, Georgia. This news at this point has so stunned the Capitol that there is no rational progression of events. Nobody is thinking about much of anything except the indescribable, incredible fact that the man who came out of Fort Worth with his customary PT boat vigor at 7 o'clock this morning, made 2 speeches in Fort Worth, and then went on to Dallas, is now a man in his 46th year, the youngest president of the United States ever to be elected as such, the first Roman Catholic ever to be elected as such, is dead. This is Edward P. Morgan in Washington.
You got it, New York.
This is Ron Cochran in the ABC News headquarters in New York. Senators, we're told, crowded around 2 news tickers waiting for word of the shooting. Many of the senators remained slumped in their seats on the floor until Senate Democratic leaders called the Senate back into session. Senator Richard Russell of Georgia said the whole nation is shocked by this dastardly crime. And after a 15-minute recess, the Senate returned and had the Reverend Frederick Brown Harris, Senate chaplain, say a prayer. The Senate adjourned after the chaplain's prayer that President Kennedy's life might be spared. That, of course, was before word came that he had already died. Vice President Johnson's office says it has no information to confirm rumors that Johnson has been wounded in the shooting. That, however, was an earlier word, and evidently the Vice President was not injured, according to all the information we have. We were told from Dallas a few minutes ago that the Vice President is already on his way back to Washington. Possibly he is attempting to get back to the airport. I doubt that he has had time to leave Dallas. In any event, according to the best information we have, Vice President Johnson will not take the oath of office as president until he returns to Washington. On the 7th floor of the Hotel Commodore here in New York, where the Democratic State Committee has headquarters, about a dozen women, including members of the staff, broke into tears. All normal activity ceased in the hotel, and in nearby office buildings, they were crowded around radio and television sets, as I'm sure millions of persons are all over the country by this time. And incidentally, you may have seen, of course, a good deal of confusion in our reports. Quite naturally, all of us in the television and radio industry were taken quite by surprise by this event. Obviously, no one could possibly in his wildest dream have imagined that such a thing would happen. The word came, of course, that the shooting had taken place during the normal lunchtime here in New York, and all of us at all the networks rushed back from wherever we were at the time and got on the air as quickly as possible. And we are still operating under more or less emergency and impromptu conditions, but we are staying on the air to bring you the news, every bit of information as it comes to us from the wire services and from our own reporters in Dallas and in Washington. We have just received word that Assistant Presidential Press Secretary Malcolm Kilduff confirms that Johnson, that is Vice President Johnson, was not hit by the rifle fire. The new president previously had been reported wounded. So I think that there's no doubt now that Lyndon Johnson is all right. He was not injured in the shooting. Mayor Wagner here in New York was at a luncheon club. When he received the news, he reported he was watching the news of the shooting on television, described the event as a terrible thing. We'll be receiving various comments by dignitaries and others all over the country. The only thing, of course, that all of us can say at this time is that this was a shocking, shocking thing, something which no one could have imagined would happen, and yet it has. President Kennedy was the first president to be assassinated since William McKinley was shot, and that was in 1901, 62 years ago. And this is the first death of a president in office since Franklin D. Roosevelt died of a cerebral hemorrhage at Warm Springs, Georgia in April 1945. There have been only, I guess in this century, only 3 other presidents have been shot at. Besides McKinley, there was an attempt on the life of Franklin D. Roosevelt, in which Mayor Cermak of Chicago was killed, and there was an attempt on the life by a group of Puerto Rican nationalists in Washington on the life of President Truman while he was staying in Blair House at the time that the White House was being rebuilt. That was in 1950. 2 Puerto Rican nationalists tried to gun their way into Blair House and assassinate Mr. Truman, who was taking a nap at the time on the 2nd floor. 1 White House police officer was killed in that shooting and another seriously wounded. One of the assassins was killed in a blaze of gunfire on Pennsylvania Avenue, right across the street from the White House. Guarding the president, of course, obviously is a very hazardous occupation. One of the Secret Service men traveling with President Kennedy was killed by the gunfire today. We have not received word that any others were wounded. Governor John Connally of Texas underwent an operation for the gunshot wound. He was struck in the chest. He was operated on at 2:30 p.m. today. His condition is said to be serious. It's not described as critical, but serious. The governor was not out of the woods, according to the doctors. They say that the vital signs are good, however. The doctor said Governor Connally had a good pulse. His respiration was satisfactory. According to eyewitnesses, Governor Connally and President Kennedy fell simultaneously. We do not know, of course, at this time whether that indicates that they were both felled by the same bullet, which was fired by a sniper. According to our reporters in Dallas, someone saw the muzzle of a gun emerge from a window in a warehouse building along the parade route, or not far from the parade route. We don't know how many shots were fired. There were more than 1, possibly 3 or 4. Do you have any further information, Ed Silverman? Have you received any
reports? We've got the phone open here, Ron. We have expectancy of a report from Bob Clark any moment. He, of course, was traveling with the presidential party. Here's something just in. It's a report out of Washington, of course, reporting that 6 members of President Kennedy's cabinet were out of the country flying to Japan when the president was killed today. They were an hour and a half out of Honolulu. The secretaries were advised of the killing, and of course they immediately turned back. They're expected to speed directly back to Washington. Now, this party was on its way to a meeting with members of the Japanese cabinet. Now, in the party en route were Secretary of State Rusk, Secretary of Commerce Hodges, Secretary of Labor Wirtz, and Secretary of the Interior Udall, and Secretary of Agriculture Freeman. Their wives accompanied them. Of course, when they heard the news, they turned directly back.
I think it's fair to say that President Kennedy's administration is perhaps one of the most traveling administrations of all time.
partly because of the availability of jet planes and therefore the relative ease of travel, but also because it was part of the pattern of President Kennedy's method of operating. He liked to travel. He liked to go to the scene where things were happening and to see and hear for himself. And partly because of the President's own inclinations in those directions, there was a great deal of traveling done by him and his staff, but also he surrounded himself with people who seemed to like to travel. And it is ironic that this event should occur at a time when the White House staff, the official White House staff, was largely depleted. You heard earlier that Pierre Salinger, the President's news secretary, was on his way to Tokyo, and many of the other top-ranking officials of the White House were not at their desks, not even in Washington, so that this did perhaps slow up the transmission of news, considering the President somewhat. We have word that the Russian news agency, TASS, carried a flash on its international English language radio teletype circuit at 2:45 p.m. today. The flash said it has just been officially announced that United States President John F. Kennedy has died in a hospital after an attempt was made on his life by persons, as believed, from among the extreme right-wing elements. The identity of the assassin or assassins, we do not know whether it's more than one person. The identity has not been established. Sheriff's officers in Dallas took a young man into custody at the scene and questioned him behind closed doors, we're told. And a Dallas television reporter said he saw a rifle being withdrawn from a window. You heard that on our broadcast here a few minutes ago. He said it was on the 5th or 6th floor of an office building shortly after the gunfire. Kennedy was shot at 1:25 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We go now to Don Goddard.
With me in the studio here is a man who spent 8 years as press secretary for President Eisenhower and is used to the precautions taken for the president's safety. And he is Jim Haggerty, now vice president of ABC Paramount Pictures. Jim, what security measures would have been taken in this case?
Well, Don, whenever the president goes any place, there is always an advance party of Secret Service men that go out into the area. They work closely with the local municipal police, with the sheriff's department in the county, and with the state police. They make the advance preparations.
Yep.
During the motorcade, where this terrible thing happened, there is always the driver of the presidential car is a member of the Secret Service.
Sorry to interrupt, Jim. We'll get back to this. Right. We have a phone call from Bob Clark in Dallas. Back to Ron Cochran.
Stand by, please.
Hey, Nick.
Bob, stand by, please. We were having a little technical difficulty. All right, Bob, yes, we are on the air now, Bob. Would you give us a recap of all that you know, please?
Well, first, the president's body has just been taken to Parkland Memorial Hospital to a Dallas funeral home. The body, in a sealed brown casket, was wheeled out of the emergency ward where the president has been since he was admitted to the hospital about an hour and a half ago. Mrs. Kennedy walked quietly by the side of the casket as it was placed in an ambulance waiting outside the hospital.
Bob, there have been reports that there was a possibility that Mrs. Kennedy and Mrs. Connolly might have been wounded. Anything to that report?
One of the women in the were wounded. There has been a still unconfirmed report that Lyndon Johnson suffered a heart attack sometime after the shooting. The only thing I could add to this, I was at the side of the president's limousine when the president's body was lifted out of the car and placed on a stretcher and taken into the emergency ward. At that time, oddly, the vice president appeared to be clutching his chest. He preceded the president into the hospital, which seemed an unusual thing to do. Normally, you would have expected that he would have stood at the side of the president. So this might lend some credence to the reports that the vice president may have suffered a heart attack.
Is he now en route to Washington?
he is en route to Washington. We have this further word from Mrs. Johnson, who left the hospital here about a half an hour ago, said only one word when she was asked about the Vice President, and that was that he was fine.
Has anyone seen Mrs. Kennedy recently? How is she taking it? Is she in a state of shock? Is she under sedation?
Walked within a half dozen feet of me just 3 or 4 minutes ago as the President's body was taken out of the hospital. I didn't get a clear look at her face. Obviously, she is grief-stricken at this stage, but she was walking calmly by the side of the casket as it was. We heard the shots very clearly, but it was almost inconceivable at that stage that this was an assassination. About no more than 2 or 3 seconds elapsed before the car that the President was traveling. This was an open limousine that had been sent out from the White House fleet in Washington. This car came to an immediate stop. The Secret Service follow car. Some of the agents piled out, then almost immediately leaped back in. We saw one of them pull out a submachine gun. They leaped back into the car, and the motorcade took off very rapidly. It had just entered a throughway. The motorcade did something like 60 miles an hour to Parkland Memorial Hospital, which is some 3 or 4 miles away. The car I was in kept up with the motorcade. We were some 50 feet behind the car carrying the President when he entered the hospital grounds. We, of course, all out of the car, went immediately to the side of his car. At that point, the President was lying prone in the back seat of the car, his head cradled by Mrs. Kennedy. He was holding one hand over his head. Apparently, he had, when he had been shot, he had touched his hand to his face. He was absolutely motionless. I think someone who had, was more experienced at this sort of disaster might have recognized immediately that the President had been mortally wounded. I stood at the side of the car for some a minute or two while a stretcher was wheeled out. During this period, the President made no motion at all. The First Lady again sat at her holding his head. Then he was lifted by 3 or 4 Secret Service agents, again with Mrs. Kennedy standing by, actually pulling on to him during this period. He was lifted by the agents and placed on the stretcher, wheeled immediately into the emergency ward of the hospital. At this point, Governor Connolly, who had also, of course, been shot and is still in critical condition, was lying sort of half stretched out in the front seat of this the same open limousine. The only persons besides the Secret Service agents in the car with the President were Governor Connolly, and the First Lady. When the President was wheeled into the hospital, Governor Connolly was still lying again half stretched out on the front seat of the car. I was surprised at this stage. I had noticed while we were waiting for the stretcher to be wheeled up for Mr. Kennedy, the Vice President, who had been traveling in a car behind the President, had gotten out, and with someone by his side, the Vice President appeared to be clutching his chest. He walked into the hospital, perhaps a minute or so before Mr. Kennedy was placed aboard the... There have since, of course, been unconfirmed reports that the Vice President has suffered a heart attack. From the time the President arrived at the hospital, we went through almost an hour without any medical word at all. The corridor where he had been wheeled into the emergency ward was closed off to all but the Secret Service agents. Senator Yarborough of Texas, who had also been in the procession and in the car with Lynn Johnson, sat weeping quietly in a small hospital room off the corridor. The Secret Service maintained extremely strict precautions during this stage. No one, and that meant absolutely no one, was permitted down the corridor within 50 of the emergency room where the President then lay. The official word that the President was dead was, this announcement was made in the lobby of the White House, almost an hour after he had been shot. The only development since that time, and we have still had no further medical details from any of the doctors in attendance. The only further development came just a few minutes ago when the president, the bronze casket bearing the president's body was out of the hospital, placed in an ambulance and taken to a Dallas funeral home.
All right, Bob, we're going to do something rather unorthodox, but the circumstances call for it. We want you to proceed to a radio station, TV station, WFAA, and give us your reports from there. Call us on our number is Susquehanna 75000, extension 385. Those are your instructions, Bob. Thank you very much for the report.
Until we have somebody else here at the hospital, or someone else getting development out, I would not do that at this stage.
Okay, we'll abide by your decision then, Bob. You keep us posted. Anytime you have anything fresh, give us a call. We'll put you on. Okay, fine. Thank you. That was Bob Clark and Duff.
TV you were just taking, huh?
You're on the air, Bob, so we hear you. Thank you very much, Bob. And we'll hear from you later. That was Bob Clark in Dallas. Let's go now to Don Goddard.
With me here in the studio is Jim Haggerty, who spent 8 years as press secretary of President Eisenhower, as you know, and who had a hand in the planning of many motorcades like this to prevent the very greatest dread of the thing that has happened today. Jim is now vice president of ABC. Jim, what precautions normally would be taken, and why did they break down in this case?
Well, I don't think they broke down. There is always an advanced Secret Service detail that goes to any city and works with the local police, the sheriff's office, the state police in protecting the line of route. So when a president of the United States or any official of our country is traveling in an open car, you cannot guard every single window. You cannot guard every single building. So you have to go for a show of force, an obvious show of police protection. In an open car, or in any car that the president rides in, the driver is a Secret Service man, and the man in the front seat is a Secret Service man. Immediately following the presidential car, there is at least one and sometimes two follow-up Secret Service cars. The drivers of those cars are members of the Secret Service, and the occupants are Secret Service and special assigned men from the municipal police force or the state police force or the sheriff's office. I have seen many motorcades, talked to many officials of law enforcement agencies throughout our country and around the world, and each of them say the same thing, that a rifle shot, particularly from a window of a building, is pretty tough to guard against. But the President of the United States, a man in that office, has to be completely faithless about his own welfare.
And fearless.
And fearless. And all of our presidents, I think, have done that way. The very fact that at least the suspect has been seized shows that the security was working to a certain point. But this has happened. Attempts have happened before. Ron Cochran has reported the other events in front of Blair House in 1950 with President Truman, in Miami with President-elect Roosevelt. But the thing that this one a little different than any others was that this was a rifle apparently used with a marksman. In the past, there only one other man outside of the Puerto Ricans who fired at a president and knew how to shoot a firearm was John Wilkes Booth. All of the other attempts on the lives of the president have been by screwballs who have fired a gun for the first time in their life at the president of the United States.
Jim, we now have some film, fresh film in Dallas, and we will go to our Dallas newsroom for that.
Jay Watson and Bob Walker at WFAA-TV in Dallas, the ABC News Information Center for this area. The eyes of the nation and the hearts of the nation are with Mrs. Kennedy today, and the eyes of Dallas, Texas are held in shame. We have a film available that was, excuse me, Bob, go ahead.
May report this bulletin that a Secret Service agent and a Dallas policeman were shot and killed here today. They were shot some distance from the area where President Kennedy was assassinated. No other information immediately available from there, except one more point here, that this Secret Service Lieutenant Eric Kaminsky has said the assassin's weapon appears to have been a high-powered Army or Japanese rifle of .25 caliber. The entire building where the sniper was located was evacuated. If we could get a picture of our map here and show somewhere of the building, it's a Texas school book depository, which means exactly what it says.
This is the car where the president was. This is what we call our triple underpass in Dallas. This is the grassy area where, and it was originally thought that the shots came from him here, and now it's believed that the shots came from this building here. We have a film now, and by the way, we have one of the men, someone, and I should say someone, has been arrested in one of the downtown theaters. They don't know if it was the man who shot the policeman or the person who actually shot President Kennedy and Governor Connally. It's in our process. It's being processed now. We'll have that just as soon as possible. Right now, we have an interview with an investigating officer, so let's roll that film, please.
Oh, no. You saw a man up there? That's where the guy was.
Here, open my mic. This is the, of course you realize that the film is unedited, and this is one of the parts of the film without the sound on it. This film was made in one of the investigators' offices here in Dallas, and we will have the interview in just a few moments. I'd like to repeat that we will have some videotape later in the day of the president's arrival at Love Field in Dallas at approximately 11:35 this morning, and 1 hour later the president was shot.
This is filmed in Sheriff Bill Becker's office.
Sheriff of Dallas County. The city of Dallas, well, I know...
Sit down.
Okay, Sawyer, your position. Inspector, please. What is the story here now? This is apparently the building that the assassin shot from.
This is the building that the witnesses said they had seen a man up there, and some with a rifle. And also we found some empty rifle shells on the 5th floor.
So he would have been directly above us?
Directly above us. Indications were that he had been there for some time.
Well, has the police department taken any precautions against such an incident?
We thought we had taken all of the precautions that were necessary. But this particular building was not covered as there were a lot of other buildings.
Well, as it stands now, there is a suspect. There were witnesses.
There are witnesses who saw the man.
What did they see as far as the president and the governor?
Well, several witnesses saw him slump over.
The president?
Yes.
And the governor?
And the governor, yes.
You also understand a Secret Service man was in?
This I do not know. I haven't received that information.
How many policemen are there in the city of Dallas?
We have approximately 1,300.
I would assume they're all out right now.
Yes, bulletin here. Police have arrested a white man in the Riverside section of Fort Worth in connection with the shooting of a Dallas policeman. The man has denied any connection with the assassination of President Kennedy.
Of course, there'll be a lot of stories coming in like that. Everybody that's picked up here will be in some way or another connected. We do not know at this moment in Dallas, from the latest word we've gotten from our reporters, from the police chief, and from the sheriff's department, if any of the people arrested so far are actually the person who pulled the trigger. It seems like that the building that the shot was fired from is a building used by the state of Texas to store school books. It's an old building, a building that would be hard to cover. It stands over the viaduct as I guess there are 15 or 20 different places throughout the building that someone could be hiding to take a shot. I don't know of anything. I'd like to speak here for the city of Dallas. We are ashamed at the moment We are stunned. The whole world is stunned, but at this moment I don't think anybody could be more stunned than the people who live in our city. We have, only a few weeks ago when Adlai Stevenson was here, and you're all familiar with the incidents that took place there, and all of us were commenting this morning, and all of us for the last few days have been commenting that we hope nothing would happen to bring disgrace to Dallas. The messages are coming in to our newsroom from all over the state, coming in from all over the world. We will have, how do we stand on our film, Bob? Have you been able to check? Be about 6 or 8 minutes before we do have. In the meantime, let's show the videotape of the president arriving.
That's why he's queuing down.
Beg your pardon? 1 moment here. We're queuing. We have the videotape of the president arriving this morning, is that correct? Okay, we are now queuing up the videotape of the president's arrival in Dallas this morning, Bob.
I couldn't help it. I was at the airport broadcasting the arrival. Couldn't help but mention how thrilled the crowds were that the president broke away from his normal routine and rushed up to the fences and shook hands with the hundreds of people, estimate now somewhere between 1,500 and 2,000 people at Love Field. And I couldn't help but remark how great spirits he was in, and his wife. Their Texas reception thus far had been just wonderful, better than suspected in Houston, perhaps not quite as good in San Antonio, I think above all expectations in Fort Worth. This morning he had stepped out in the parking lot and talked to 8,000 people in Fort Worth, and his wife wasn't along. A few people were disappointed. The president very jokingly remarked, well, it takes Jackie a little longer to get prettied up than it does me. And that's where she is now, he told the crowd. Then he went inside and addressed the breakfast meeting over there at the Texas Hotel where they had spent the night, and then came on into Dallas. And the Dallas reception was just tremendous at Love Field. The crowds roaring and cheering and straining forward to get a good look at the president. And then he and his wife broke away and came up smiling to the fences, walked all along that fence. And now let's see it. I think the videotape is ready of the president's arrival here this morning. There he is.
He's waving at a lot of people, smiling, Secret Service men all around. Boy, this is something. They break right away and come right up to the fence, and the people who waited all morning in this fence are rewarded with a glimpse, and a lot of them with a close look and a handshake with the President of the United States and his wife. And he's coming right down toward us and toward our fine camera positions here. The press is having a field day. Somebody perched up on somebody's shoulders. Secret Service right along with the president, of course. The president passes right in front of a Dallas police officer, right in front of our cameras now. Somebody patted his shoulder, Mrs. Kennedy coming along behind him, grinning all the while. The president saying, thank you very much, if I may be permitted to read a presidential lip movement. This is a bonus for the people who have waited out here. Now, Mrs. Kennedy, right along behind him. The president still moving over towards some phone booths that were set up for the press. The people surging up toward that fence. But there is a fence, and the president waves goodbye, waits for his wife, and back they go to the car. Governor Conley standing in the car.
This is Jim Haggerty. The pictures that you're seeing now on your television set show quite distinctly the Secret Service coverage of the president. There are 3 or 4 Secret Service men right behind the president and Mrs. Kennedy, as Mrs. Kennedy now gets into the car, and the president does. The other man in the car is the governor of Texas, and the Secret Service men are now getting in the driver and the front seat. The other members of the detail have apparently left to go into the follow-up car, which is the car which will be the car immediately behind the president's car in the motorcade. Mrs. Kennedy and the president, as you can see, are leaving. The governor of Texas is in the jump seat right directly in front of the president, and the wife of the governor of Texas is sitting in front of Mrs. Kennedy. The Secret Service are following the car out. They're standing on the running board of the follow-up car, and, as is their custom, until the president's car picks up speed, usually about 20 miles an hour, run alongside of the car. When the car is moving, the Secret Service drop back, jump into the follow-up car, and stay right with him. The driver of the follow-up car keeps his car about no more than 10 feet at the maximum, and usually about 6 feet behind the presidential car at all times, regardless of the speed of the president's car and the speed of the motorcade. The other cars that you see there, I would imagine, are cars for dignitaries and cars for the press corps that follows with the president. One of the cars in the motorcade is a pool car of representatives of the combined news media. There again you can see the Secret Service in the follow-up car standing on the running board. That car, by the way, has very heavy armaments in it. It has submachine guns. It has the necessary... And now, as you see, the president's car is leaving. We change you now to Dallas.
A gentleman just walked in our studio that I am meeting for the first time, as well as you. This is WFAA-TV in Dallas, Texas. May I have your name, please, sir?
My name is Abraham Zapruder.
Mr. Zapruder?
Zapruder, yes.
Zapruder. And would you tell us your story, please, sir?
I got out and about a half hour earlier to get to a good spot to shoot some pictures. And I found a spot, one of these concrete blocks that I have down near the park near the underground. And I got on top there was another girl from my office. She was right behind me. And as I was shooting, as the president was coming down from Houston Street making his turn, it was about halfway down there, I had a shot. And he slumped to the side like this. Then I had another shot or two. I couldn't say it was one or two. And I saw his head practically open up, all blood and everything. And I kept on shooting. That's about all.
I think that pretty well expresses the entire feelings of the whole world. You have the film in your camera. We'll try
I brought it on the studio. Yeah.
We'll try to get that processed and have it as soon as possible. Right now, we have videotape. A picture of the building of where the bullet came from. Let's take the picture first, then the videotape. Oh, this is videotape now. This is a picture of the hearse leaving Parkland Hospital with President Kennedy's body. As I understand it, the body is being taken to one of the funeral homes here in Dallas. All right, Bob, that pretty well covers it, I think. This is the same hospital that President Kennedy visited in his visit here in 1961. It is not, excuse me. This is the outside shot of the hospital and the people who are gathered there. All stunned, the realization that President Kennedy was assassinated in Dallas, Texas today. Now we have a picture of the building. There's a picture of the building one of the boys took showing possibly one of the windows that was used. The top right hand. Okay, which one was it? Let's see if we can figure it out. There it is. There is a picture of the window where the gun was allegedly fired from that killed President Kennedy today. Excuse me, go ahead, sir.
That must have been the line of fire that you now the picture where I was. I was right on that concrete block that I was at. And as I explained before, it was a sickening scene. At first I thought perhaps it sounded like somebody make a joke. You hear a shot and somebody grabs their stomach.
I was about 100 yards away from one of our other, the boy and I walked over to see President Kennedy. We were about 100 yards away, and it sounded like there were 3 shots. And after the first couple, I said, my God, they shot the president. And then we walked over and looked down and could see the people on the grass there, and I imagine you were one of the people that we saw there underneath the viaduct. This happened this afternoon about, what time? 12:35. The president died.
Something like it.
The president died at 1 o'clock. They sounded like, at first they sounded like firecrackers, and somebody next to us said they were shooting off fireworks, but then we realized, it didn't take but a minute to realize that they were loud reports, and for those of you who are familiar with hearing a rifle shot, it was a recognizable sound. The videotape that we have, Bobby, what do you have now? Okay, that completes the videotape coverage for the moment. We will have film back in about 15 minutes of the arrest of a person who could be the person who shot the policeman or the Secret Service man or Connally or President Kennedy, and we'll have that in just a moment. Now let's go back to ABC in New York.
Jim, the Dallas Sheriff's Department has found a rifle on the 5th floor staircase of that building we just saw in the picture, the book storage place. It's a 7.65 Mauser, German-made Army rifle, telescopic sight, and 1 shell left in the chamber. 3 spent shells have been found nearby, and apparently they're hooking this as the murder weapon. This is from one of those windows up in the top.
Well, Don, as I said a little earlier, I think this, like the Puerto Rican attempt in front of Blair House in 1950, has to be a planned conspiracy. This is the first time in our history when a rifle has been used and fired at a president of the United States. From the photographs of the building, that carry must have been a couple of 100 yards. And whoever fired it must have been a man that could handle a rifle with a telescopic sight, and I understand they found the rifle and had a telescopic sight on it. All of the other attempts, both assassinations and attempts, outside of the Puerto Rican one, was done with a pistol. And with the exception of John Wilkes Booth, the attempted or the assassins of the president fired a revolver at the president for the first time they ever fired a gun. So this must have been a very carefully planned, terrible tragedy and conspiracy. Again, talking about the security matters, in a large city it is impossible to guard every single window. In the years that I served with General Eisenhower, the only time I ever saw all windows guarded in a line of march was at Tehran, when President Eisenhower went to visit the Shah of Iran. And as you might remember, along about that time, his life had been publicly threatened by the members of the communist conspiracy throughout the world. And they turned out their whole army, and every single window on that line of march in the city was guarded by either an army or a policeman. But that was the only time I've ever seen that.
You felt pretty well covered that time.
You felt very well covered. But in a city, it's impossible. In a city the size of Dallas or New York, you just can't guard every single window. But it happens. And these are the risks that a president always takes. I'm sure that every single president, I know President Eisenhower personally, in the back of his mind always realized that there was a chance where some vindictive person or a screwball or somebody like that would take a shot at him.
It's bootless, Jim, to talk about what might have happened, but would that bubble have bounced bullets if it had been closed?
I can't speak with any authority on the bubble that is now used. I can with the bubble that was used by President Eisenhower, and that was not bulletproof. The bottom of the car that President Eisenhower used, and I would assume is the same as President Kennedy, is armor-plated. And that is for grenades that might be tossed, or a mine, or something like that. But the bubble on President Eisenhower's car was used to protect mainly from the elements, rain or drizzle, so that the people could still see him if it was raining or was drizzling.
Well, this adds one to the case for conspiracy then, and the Dallas police are apparently trying to add another. They've arrested a 24-year-old man, Lee Oswald, in connection with the slaying of the Dallas policeman, and presumably the slaying also of the Secret Service man in another part of Dallas, which happened shortly before the president.
Well, I was interested also, Don, in the reports from Bob Clark that after the shooting happened, the president's car and the follow-up car immediately left in a hurry, left the scene. This, again, is in line with security measures. And if anything happens, they get out of that place fast in case there are other people in the crowd that are ready.
Yes. Jim, Jules Bergman is down in Times Square for reaction there. We switch to Jules.
1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Still not receiving anything on the PL. Still not receiving anything on the PL.
This is the scene in Times Square as New Yorkers stand stunned. You can see the sorrow on their faces, I think. There isn't, everyone is waiting to hear what's going to happen next, as if...
Which isn't in yet? Which is the one you're going to have to use? This isn't in yet? No. How are we going to use this? Just like this. Well, switch it. Switch cords. What are you doing, Morse? This one will be okay.
Disgusting. The New York City Police Commissioner has ordered all policemen to work from 8 o'clock this morning to be held in reserve to 8 o'clock at night to handle the crowds we have just seen in Times Square. Lou Ciaffi is standing by in Paris with the reaction from that stunned nation. We will listen to...
1. The news of the assassination of the president has shocked all of France. Here in this Riviera city of Nice, where the leading UNR party is meeting in its national convention, the gay convention mood has given way to one of sorrow. Delegates are sincerely saddened. For despite differences that have existed between our two countries, France had faith in President Kennedy. The words being heard now are terrible tragedy, awful, and the universal attitude is this touches not only the United States, but France and all of the free world. The news struck here in France with a kind of bitter irony. This assassination has been the specter that has been haunting France for years. 3 times extremists have tried to take the life of President Charles de Gaulle. 3 times they failed. And the fatalists have been saying, what if they finally succeed one day? What will happen to our country? Who will be able to follow in the general's footsteps? That same tragic question is now being asked about the United States. Who will be able to follow in the footsteps of John F. Kennedy? General de Gaulle himself was reported to have been deeply saddened by the news. Despite the general's differences with Mr. Kennedy, the general had a deep and faith and respect in President Kennedy. Even when he cast mistrust on the future intentions of the United States, he always made it clear that he was not speaking of John F. Kennedy, that the president would keep his word to defend the free world. In the streets of this Riviera city, in the streets of cities all over France, a kind of gloom has settled the country. Lou Ciaffi, ABC.
Late dispatch from Washington says that the president's body will be brought to Washington this afternoon. And Vice President Johnson is expected to be sworn in as President of the United States aboard an airliner before flying immediately back to the nation's capital. Governor John Connally of Texas, who was shot at the same time as President Kennedy, has undergone surgery for the wound in his chest. His condition is serious, but he's believed to have a good chance of recovery. And now back to Dallas for a late report from there.
Jay Watson and Bob Walker at WFAA-TV in Dallas. We have some late film. Also, we understand that Vice President Lyndon Johnson will be sworn in Dallas. Our video cruiser is on the way. We'll try to have that tape for you later, or at least we will have film coverage of that as soon as possible. Let's roll the film now, Bob, and see what it is.
All right. This is some of the motorcade as it ended its drive just
minutes before it rounded the turn at which the president was shot and killed. Some of the people on the streets.
And just about a minute, I'd say 45 seconds before the president was shot, I was standing right in here and gave the president the applaud. He turned the corner.
There's the president and Mrs. Kennedy just minutes before he was shot.
Mr. Haggerty explained, too, that dome was not on, as you can see there.
Now we're getting down.
Right here is where it took place. Just as you saw...
Now, here is the spot where the president was killed. This is the building which the shot was fired. In a minute, you'll see a policeman or someone crawling in. Where's the window where the shot was fired from? Now you see policemen with guns, suspecting perhaps the man was still in the building. Bits of chicken, food particles were found in the building indicating he had been there for some time. The weapon has been found. I do not have the exact make of it. They found it on the 6th floor of this building. I just learned that. A German Mauser, I believe, is what it was.
That's out in front of the Depository, Texas.
Right. This was just minutes after the president was shot.
If you remember the picture there where the president turned left in the long shot, it was there that it happened.
Dallas County Sheriff Bill Decker. Policemen with the guns, trained. Have no idea at all who these people may be. Evidently, they're clearing the area is all I can say. President John F. Kennedy has now been dead an hour and 49 minutes.
This is the scene where President Kennedy was shot this afternoon, Dallas, Texas, picking up one of the
Just suspects by the droves, of course, have been pulled off the streets.
Now, the picture you see now is tracing the route of President Kennedy up 11th Avenue on Turtle Creek. Now we're coming into the main part of Dallas. There's City Hall. He turns left, right on Houston Street, and right there is where the president was shot. The films that you have just seen.
The trademark up the top of the picture is where he was set to give an address at 1 o'clock, incidentally, the minute he expired.
Okay, Bob, I see that Ron Ryland is. Let him scoot in here and tell what he knows. I think he had the film, shot the film of the man that was arrested. Sit down. This is Ron Ryland. You can imagine the confusion that's going on in the city of Dallas today, not only in our newsroom, but in all the newsrooms. Ron, tell us what you know.
Well, I've just come back from Oak Cliff at the Texas Theater on West Jefferson Street.
Let me explain that Oak Cliff is a part of Dallas.
Yes, sir, it is. We joined a police motorcade that was dashing to the Texas Theater where they had a report of a man coming in there that was armed. Just prior to that, a police officer had been shot in that area, been shot with a .38 caliber automatic. We went to the scene. About, I would say, 200 or more police officers went into the theater and found a man sitting in the second row from the back that was armed with a shotgun. The
crowd, of course, I imagine, connected this with the slaying of the president.
Yes, sir. Any man, I think, it is armed in Dallas today is a suspect at the moment. The officers converged on this man, grabbed him up, and hustled him out of the theater, all the while he was protesting against the police brutality that they were working him over in one thing and another. They dragged him out. The crowd proceeded to push the officers aside and try to get at the man, screaming murder and all, and they do believe that it was almost a lynch mob.
Ron, did you just shoot the film that we just looked at?
I just got in, Mr. Watson. I haven't seen the film.
Why don't you bring him in? Let's let him. We'll run the film again and let A.J. talk about it. Excuse me, go ahead now. Do you know exactly what kind of gun that they found over at the book?
Yes, sir. They have just found the weapon that they believe is the assassination weapon. It is an Argentine 6.5 Mauser that had a 4-power scope on it. Also, in this same area, they found a bag of chicken. They found several bottles of soft drink. And in other words, the man had been planted there for some time.
He could have been there for quite some time.
Yes, sir. I assume that he'd been there for possibly overnight because he did have several things there to eat.
Do you have, excuse me, I've just received word that Lyndon Johnson has been sworn in as President of the United States. More background material on that in just a few moments from New York. I'll repeat, Lyndon Johnson is now President of the United States. He was sworn in just a few minutes ago at Love Field. Our boys are coming back to the studio here at WFAA-TV with that film, and we'll have it in just a few moments. Let's look at the film again, Ron, and you narrate it this time because you were there. This is the film we showed just a few minutes ago. Go ahead.
Well, this is just prior to the parade. Everyone was sitting around having a good time. I do believe it was a very fervent welcome for President Kennedy. Everybody seemed to be enjoying it.
And the President made a statement earlier how pleased that he was with the turnout in his reception in the Dallas-Fort Worth area.
Yeah, I think that everybody was just real happy. As the motorcade came down the street, the crowd oftentimes broke loose and dashed out, shook hands with him.
This is Main Street.
Everybody just seemed to be enjoying and having a good summertime outing.
Right. Now, in just a few moments, you'll see almost the exact spot where the President was shot. Right in this area on down the road.
Yes, so this is a bookstore, a Texas bookstore, right where these officers are, is where the man was supposed to have been on the 6th floor. This is where they found the rifle. Right. It was on the 6th floor behind a bunch of boxes stacked in behind them. The crowd gathered quickly. The officers descended on the area and tried to keep people back, but of course everybody swarmed in, and I guess the roof just sort of fell in on Dallas at this moment.
It has.
We went in with the Secret Service officers. We covered every inch of the building from the roof to the basement, and finally they did discover this gun on the 6th floor. There was no sign of the man. About 6 or 7 witnesses said that they had seen this man, but of course at a time like this everybody sees everybody, and it's hard to tell which is true and which is not. The Secret Service agents, the FBI officers, all guarded the doors, would not allow anyone in the building or out. Therefore, I do believe that you'll find that these are exclusive films.
I think
as far as the building itself, this is Sheriff Bill Deckard, Dallas County Sheriff. These are officers, and as you notice, they're all armed with riot guns, shotguns, machine guns, everything possible in an attempt to apprehend this man. I do believe that he'll never be taken alive. But
you do believe it?
Well, I don't think they'll allow him. I'm afraid this man at this point is so disrupted he may just do away with himself, if anything else.
That's the conversation we've had here.
The crowd swarmed in and did not necessarily hamper operations or anything like that, but
more suspects here, I guess, huh?
They were all taken over to Bill Decker's office where they were interrogated. Anyone who had said that they had seen anything at all, whether it was actually with the shooting or leading up to it, people hanging out of windows, the sheriff took him over and started to interrogate them.
One of our newsmen, Mal Crutch, said that he saw the rifle come out the window. That's it from Dallas, Texas for the moment. We will have more film, and we will have film of Vice President Lyndon Johnson being sworn in later in the day. Now let's go back to New York.
Lyndon Johnson is now President of the United States. He succeeds the President Kennedy, who held him in high esteem and had his every confidence.